Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 48th episode of Cultist Simulator, the Dancer DLC. Sorry, I just tabbed out of the game. All right, here we go. So we're just finishing off an expedition. Oh, sorry, we're starting an expedition. Although I think we did get past the dead. Yes, so we need to add some lantern followers, and the Citadel will be ours. Not as clear what I want to do with the talk verb. I think probably it's time to... Yeah, I haven't done the commission, so let's talk to Leo and get him working on a reputation. Not everyone is sympathetic to our aims, but if we have problems with our reputation, our disciple can probably smooth them over. And then after we're done translating the Fusine text, we will translate the true and accurate history of the Shadowless Kings before we start trying to figure out the order in which we're going to read these works. Our senses are sharpened. We should find this hidden door. And if we add... where are you, Cat Carol? We call upon the watchman who illuminates. We'll almost certainly find this hidden door. I know further along my path of change, in the movements of the secret forms, I must find my lesson. So 58 seconds, we've got 30 seconds left, so this is going to be one that turns into dread, or I otherwise need to use as an input to some other activity, but because we would lose our job at the gate if we do anything but, I'll just accept that that turns into dread, and I'm definitely going to need to work out a sort of a game plan in terms of removing the dread. Okay, so last time I checked, so I think things got juggled around a little bit. Actually, you know what? Given that we're going to be having the dread, it wouldn't be bad for me to get fascination anyway, so we will go to the Painted River, even though it's likely we'll have fascination this time around. I dreamt of the mantis behind the white door, of the great space above the orchard, the space that overlooks the bounds, the space where the vagabond once painted her river. Painted ships passed upon the painted river. I met the painted eyes of a painted captain. She saluted, and the motion was like the layered movement of clouds. The sail of the ship was amber, and the captain's eyes the green of new barley, and the river aquamarine. Now that I'm awake, I see those colors still. Now, the trickier question that I have is, do I want to try and go to the stag door again? Or do I just wait to be able to remove the dread? We don't have any immediate worry within 47 seconds, so I think in this case we can afford to go back to the stag door. I think I said the white door, but hopefully it's clear what I meant. All right. And fate lines in stone, a surface that yields to pressure. We found it. The hidden door moves with a grating shudder and a shower of dust. All right, ivory books down, so we will use our Aramaic to translate a true and accurate history of the Shadowless Kings, Isaac of Karth's history of the Shadowless Empire. At the study door, the work begins. I finished the manuscript, so we'll turn that in when we have a chance, but for now we'll just use the work verb as it was intended. We'll grab a health, throw it in there. The stage awaits hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. So regrettably, not only do I think we're going to miss this restlessness for the performance. Well, we know we're going to miss the restlessness for the performance. But worse, I feel like we'll miss the restlessness that comes after this as well. Now again, the dread from the restlessness we can take care of. The dread from the atmosphere. Well, there's a couple things that we might be able to turn to our advantage there, so we'll see. Yep, we'll just let things run by. But yeah, again, if we wind up with more fascination, there are worse fates. So optimism is the spice which saves. So if I want, I can start using the talk verb for other things. I will at minimum turn in the heart manuscript. I probably should have done that earlier. But or maybe I didn't have the option to do it earlier. And I think for the work verb, I do want to follow up on the secret histories. But again, we'll see. I just want to make sure that we don't sort of tip over the edge in terms of dread, particularly dread, given the fact that we have 2 winter books on the table right now. I have what was requested. This is one of the things where I think if you are somebody who happens to be struggling with Cultist Simulator, in particular, actually this is a tricky one because the weary detective is going to be hunting me. All right. Stage awaits hot and clean. Oh, sorry, we already read that, and we didn't have a special event, so could be worse. But I may have to do a little bit of fancy footwork. Yeah, either way, let's take care of the secret histories. This may be useful for a commission. I've received the currency of the secret world, and my patron has let tantalizing information slip. So the drawback here is that I'm not only generating mystique, but I'm going to be getting the notoriety for finishing the Voivode Citadel. So here's the Voivode's mausoleum. Swagged cobwebs hang like soft grey drapes. A great sandstone sarcophagus stands upright at the far end. It's empty. I remember there was a tweet during the production of this game of the creative lead, Alexis Kennedy, walking by his producer, Lottie Bevan, and casually mentioning that he'd added vampires to the game. So I don't know if it was this or if there was another incident, but at least when I think of this game, that particular location, that tweet always comes to mind. All right, Forbidden Epic. There's a great chamber in the mansis through which the painted river flows. The vagabond, it is claimed, painted it from memory in the years before she left the house. Certainly there are histories concealed in its design. I traced them with my hand last night. There were fragments of aquamarine paint beneath my nails, flecks of gold leaf when I was done. So I'm definitely not going to complain about some extra Forbidden Epics. We haven't been following through on them for the simple reason that I have actual expeditions to do as opposed to potential ones. So like instead of discovering it, I want the results from the expedition first. But given that we only have 2 summons now, I'll be able to use them in the talk verb and sort it out. Now, I was talking about reputation, so we are generating a bunch of mystique as we go by, and of course we have a Season of Suspicion coming up. I think the way I'm going to handle this is I'm going to wait until... actually, you know what? No, we'll be safe to potentially kill the notoriety now, so we'll add Leo to the talk. So it takes 60 seconds for the thing to cycle through, and in 26 seconds... Well, actually, I guess it would be 80 seconds, so I may be a bit premature. I guess we'll find out. Not quite what I wanted, but I can understand why it did that. Okay. Now, as always, I guess there's the question... how late do I want to wait for getting rid of the dread? Because there's one argument that you can make, which is to say, well, the fascination's going to stick around for a while. Why not wait a minute, wait for the chilly radiance to turn into dread, so at least this one you've knocked down this dread for a minute. I think I'm actually going to do that. So we'll head back to the stag door. Now this is going to burn me if I wind up with a Season of Visions. And I go back to the Painted River. But again, it's one of these things where I don't want the what ifs to drive my behavior too much. One of the things I was going to say a little bit earlier is that if you're sort of at a point in this game where you still find that you can get caught unawares with some events or some challenges, one of the things I've personally found helpful in terms of making... Like, I think it's fair to say for a lot of Cultist Simulator, I don't know if I'm, like, 100% secure from most involuntary endings, but it is a surprise to me, let's say, if I don't voluntarily get something like a starvation ending or falling to despair. And one of the reasons for that is just the game does telegraph... If you know where to look, the game does telegraph to you certain... what's about to happen, and what you can do is you can sort of align things in your favor. Now, it's also true that in any of these videos, even if you were to watch them in total, not every single option you have is necessarily demonstrated. So for instance, a lot of people like to, and I think this is still a trick that people do, a lot of people actually like to let one of their health fall into decrepitude, because one way you can make money with decrepitude is to beg, but beg generates a dread. And this was in fact a way that people would work with fascination before fleeting reminiscence was a threat. Now, personally, I don't kind of like that sort of stuff because it's a little bit like painting sort of becoming the most reliable and profitable way of sustaining yourself. It kind of clashes against the themes of the game. And so I can see why in something like The Priest, or I can understand why in narrow circumstances it may be desirable for a character to sort of take sort of a vow of poverty or some kind, right? Obviously, traditions of mortification of the flesh are certainly present in the game, but it's one of these things where I sort of feel like I'm not above sort of gaming the game. I'm not above using the mechanics to get my edge, but it's just one of these things where I sort of feel a bit weird voluntarily bringing on decrepitude so that I can deal with the possibility of fascination. And again, it's just one of the ways I like sort of being able to live in a character. I don't work out a whole history, I don't world build or anything like that. And I'm sure people who are fond of the writings, maybe not directly related to Cultist Simulator, but surrounding the creators of the game, will probably know that world building is a dangerous term. But another example of this might be using if you use money in the dream slot, you can buy opium, and that's a way that you can very likely get an emergency contentment. And in that particular case, the risk, I think, is that you generate a dread, because obviously, I think in a game you generally want to have some kind of a consequence for that. And certainly I would suspect this is, I can't speak from experience, but I suspect that it's communicating a truth that we tend to know about substance abuse. But, again, it's one of these things where I can imagine characters who might go down that path, but most of the people that I've played, I don't really see that as an option, or I don't necessarily see that as something being, as it being something kind of consistent with their behaviors. So even with that in mind, like I guess what I'm trying to say is that the game actually will offer you a few emergency escapes as well. You have to know to find where to find them, because I don't necessarily think the game goes out of its way to let you know about some of those particular features, but it's the game's maybe a little bit more forgiving than it might seem at the start. And in my own particular case, I think I've hit a point where I'm able to have a good enough understanding of what's coming up. And again, just the various levels of emergency. So one dread, one fascination on the table, that's not something to worry about. The potential for 2 dread, this is actually something I would normally start to worry about, but because I've got fascination on the table, I know that I can use the dread to annihilate the fascination, canceling out both, and so this is equivalent to 1 dread on the table, which, again, it's something I want to take seriously. It's something I want to take particularly seriously because of the 2 winter books on the table. And again, it's not always winter that creates dread. There's definitely more texts. I know at least one of them on the table that's not a winter book will generate dread. But these are the sorts of things where, if I can, I want to be kind of prepared and conscious of what's coming up so that I can direct my efforts around. And of course, as you've seen over the course of the playthroughs, I also get forgetful, so sometimes those plans blow up in my face, but I suppose that's an occupational hazard. So because we're a little bit worried about our overall emotional state, let's finish off the Forgotten Chronicle. We've got 2 glimmerings that we can work with, so I wouldn't want to play around with these Forgotten Chronicles, but at minimum we should be able to finish the work that we started. I also sort of like this too because, as I said, you can imagine situation, like, it's kind of up to you to decide what sort of character you want to play and how much you think about their behavior and their intentions, but for my part, I do tend to think... Sorry, one other thing I forgot to mention about all of this conversation is we do also have another restlessness coming up, which very likely will turn into dread. And old and happy far off things, so yet another restlessness to contend with. This is going to get interesting. And the course of the heart. All right, let's take care of the empty tomb first, and then I can keep on ranting. Someone has left a little heap of treasures before the sarcophagus, like an offering. There are no footprints in the dust. Whoever left them came here long ago, or else has no need to touch the ground when they pass. So here we've got 26 enticements, 7 torments. That's one that we can study. The Gospel of Zacchaeus. A wakeful Tapanim. In the grove where they flayed the thunder, they rattled their instrument to rouse the frenzy. The power still clings, like scent. Yeah, it's not a pigment, so... The Book of Thrones, Legend of the Shadowless Empire, transcribed by Alexander Peterhans from the Annals at a Secret Shrine in Anatolia. Probably shouldn't read these until I actually get around to working with them. And this is in Frisian, so I do not have the ability yet. A Catalogue of Uncharted Pleasures, again, similar problem. Love to read it, but... now this is a bit of a shame. Or actually, no, was it Heart or Wood? I think it's Heart. But yeah, An Urgency of Appetite. Again, given the occupant, I think this is quite appropriate. It's difficult to control oneself. And of course, our followers. So the plan is going to be once we get away with the charm, I'm gonna spam out the mystique. Well, I don't know. It's a tough call if I want to spam out the mystique or keep going with the Wildwood Club. We'll see where we're at when after the first round of the investigation. In the meantime, Cave of Candles. Every 7th sunset, the cunning man comes from the village below to renew the candles. The floor of the entrance chamber is slick of stinking wax. He claims the light keeps the creature below cowed, but more likely the sacrifices he brings keep it too sated to emerge. Alright, so even though we know we're going to need some knock, we will start with the Percussagant and the Callagine just so I can preserve them. The ascent to the cave through the high passes will be dangerous. Whatever waits in the darkness below is probably more dangerous still. So Callagine doesn't have Winter. It requires Winter to be summoned, but it's a Moth and Forge, so we'll add a Forge follower. And then I think I'll bring a couple of my knock followers to deal with the creature that's waiting in the darkness. Right. Wisdom is a country, and these are its maps. I am no further along my path of change. In the movements of the secret forms, I must find my lesson. So we will have a dance that we do to keep our contract at the Gaiety. And in 5 seconds we'll figure out whether or not we're in trouble. And I finished the manuscript. So, contract at the Gaiety. We're actually kind of hoping for an opportunity to show our stuff this time around because we do need to get rid of that restlessness. If I don't, what I'll probably wind up doing is painting, even though I'll have another commission. My own my own heart pumps more strongly today. In fact, I may still need to do that painting no matter what. The painted river runs from a great chamber near the White Door, far through the Mansus to its far edge, where it enters a painted delta of far cloud. I voyaged half its length last night with a stern-faced captain beneath a rust-red sail. As the clouds rose before us, the sailors raised a yearning shanty and close-hauled the sails to best use the painted wind, and all the while the captain and I discoursed on the secrets of the House of the Sun. Okay. So we're not going to be going back to the White Door for a while. We just need to deal with we need to deal with slightly more pressing matters. So we have less than a minute left for the fascination. So I'm going to use that on the fresh dread. Okay, so we've got a season of visions coming up, so that's going to make things a bit complicated doing that same trick over again. However, we're pretty safe as far as the dread's concerned. In fact, so 47 seconds is going to mean that there's 50 seconds left, so we know that this dread is not going to cause us problems. Depending on the restlessness, however, it may be that we need to find a way of dealing with another dread. All right, so always try to go for the old one. This is a puzzle with missing pieces. I may find those pieces in odd corners of scholarship. I almost forgot to fix the expedition. So, the high passes, bleak and gray-green slopes, lift the eye to distant snow-edged skies, straining peaks. It'll be a devil of a job to find anything in there. Forge will sustain us, winter will shield us. So, again, we're already on our way for Forge. So as much as I prefer to do the less direct approach, this is one where adding Valsine just means I'm adding one follower, and then we can add Neville and Enid after. Alright, so unlucky us, the notoriety got picked up right away. Our forge skills represent plenty of expertise, we'll almost certainly make it through. Okay, so actually both of these, we have 3 dread on the table, but only 2 are going to be active. Optimism is a spice which saves. So yeah, there's nothing I can do about this restlessness. I probably should have maybe paid a little more close attention. Oh no, sorry, what am I saying? Okay, good. Tonight I sense an opportunity. Tonight I could attract attention if I cease to hold back, if I commit myself more fully. Tonight they'll notice that. Yeah, like I said, I wasn't thinking straight. So this dread is loose. We'll have to figure out what we're doing with that, but we are going to also have to deal with some evidence. So there's a couple things I want to do. First of all, I'm going to talk with Dr. Adim. I've said this before, but I like to turn in commissions first because that starts the counter going on the character, whereas getting a commission from someone, there's no real counter for that. The counter is your ability to complete it. So our forge skills represent plenty of expertise. We'll almost certainly make it through. Now, one thing I avoid doing here is adding a follower right away. The reason I do it this way is that if for whatever reason I fail at in the first challenge, there's always that chance that one of the expedition followers will fall. Now, the chances are pretty good that the knock follower wouldn't be taken out, right? Because we've got the Percussagant, we've got the Callagine, we've got Valsine, and so essentially it's 1 in 4. Which admittedly, if it were to be Russian roulette, you'd hate those odds. And if it, but by and large, like for an expedition, that's fairly decent, especially given the fact you're not assured that you're going to lose a follower. However, it is material when you consider that you may not have the character you lose, you may not have them back in time for the challenge. And in the case of Neville and Enid, they're the only 2 knock characters. There are I think there's one other knock character that you can bring in. I'm a little uncertain in terms of the aspects, but I'm fairly certain there'll be at least one more knock that you can bring in. And then of course there's scars and such. But of course maybe you don't want to be adding scarred characters to particularly dangerous expeditions. But yeah, one way or the other, I have 2 opportunities to add people to the expedition. If there was another challenge, I would be adding money, but because we only have 2 challenges, I'm happy with the way it is right now. So I received the currency of the secret world, and my patron has let tantalizing information slip. So another erudition. Oops. Now we can talk with Madame Bichet for the commission. She's seeking pieces for the notorious Karashim Review. And finally I felt all their eyes upon me. Afterwards I received a gift from an admirer. Too gaudy for my tastes, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. So we're still keeping above water as far as the funds are concerned as well, even though we've been doing a number of expeditions. So I suppose the question is now, I don't have a commission yet, but it won't take me that long to get one. If I'm worried about dread, I could do a painting, and I could turn that into, well, not only do I turn that into money, but potentially contentment. Or I wait 10 seconds. I think we can afford to wait 10 seconds for the commission. Well, slightly longer, I guess. Sorry about that alarm. I have a lesson I need to make sure that I do. The air is curdled. The air is curdled now. I'm home again in this lump in flesh. Better, perhaps. Oh my god. I didn't realize the time. Okay, Moth Commission. I think we can handle that. Alright, so Dr. Adim is on cooldown. Let's have a chat with Count Jannings about a job. The Good Count's fraternity in Europe is seeking particular research, and we will do the Moth Commission right away. Let's add that to the pile. Actually, it probably... Oops! Okay, yeah, this is the same text. Sorry, I thought that was different text from the last aid scene. Let's try this again. So, commission, Centipede Testament, one reason, one passion. And again, it probably would have been better for me to put that down below, but this will be useful for a commission. Okay, now let's think about our dream slot. If I could, dread and a fascination, or dread and a contentment would remove the dread. We currently don't have dread, so that's not an option available. I can go through the stag door. The challenge is that in 43 seconds, 44 is probably closer, we will have a season of visions, and so going to the Painted River is potentially going to... Nope, that's still fine, actually. Well, the Fleeting Reminiscence might throw a wrench in that, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. Stag Door is the Adept's Gate. To pass it is to be initiated into the first true mystery of the House of the Sun. The head Gearby weeps to see me enter where it cannot, but it must let me pass. The scarred valves of the door grind open. And blinking in the light, now I understand. Alright, and a very substantial heart commission. So, that's Count Jannings' job. We'll figure that out. Now, next question would be, what do I want to do with the talk verb? There's still the possibility that the notoriety doesn't actually stick. I think what we'll do with Leo is start cleaning up the reputation, and then when the time comes, in fact, I believe we're going to want an opportunity to check out some new locations anyway, so that's maybe something I can send the Callagine out on. Okay, so yes, let's get Leo taking care of the Mystique. There'll eventually be some notoriety to deal with too, so... And through the high passes, frost-scarred and shivering, we've made it through the mountains. Alright, so our expedition plans for the next challenge. It'll consume funds. I can add funds now, or I could send another follower. So we're adding Neville for start. And I've increased my knowledge of the secret histories behind the one we know. So that's 3 forbidden epics we have. Eventually, I'll move that up to 4. Now... I am being a bit of a baby as far as the texts are concerned. What I will do is at least translate these, but I think I'm at a point where I should start reading them, because obviously the dread's been around a bit longer than we were anticipating, and honestly, like, we'll be fine. I have ways of working through it. It's just a little more convenient for me if I don't have to sort of wrench my actions around it. But for now, let's at least translate the works, and then we can take our pick. So, the 26 enticements, 7 torments. The painter Niels Fredrik Malsker notoriously attempted a series of paintings based on the torments. By the 5th torment, the demands of the painting had grown so dire that he died of blood loss. The diagrams in the text are thankfully less detailed. Lock the study door, the work begins. Alright, so that dread's dealt with. And we're getting close to the end of our time. Oh, good lord. Another season of ambitions. And at an inconvenient time as far as... Well, we might be able to paint it out. In fact, nope, because we gotta go to the Gaiety. But then we could use the restlessness in the dance, so... I'm safe for now. My adversary has not enough evidence to bring a case against me, and they found no new clues. So, lucky me. Call upon the mother of ants, which encircle it. Actually, this is... I know we'll go a little bit later as a result, but I think... I think let's go to the end of the expedition. Now, there's a slight chance... There's a slight chance there's a winter here, and this might be a secret histories. I think this is a fascination, more likely, and that's really going to cause problems with me, but there's just this nagging feeling that I have that it may not be a fascination this time around. So I'm just going to say that this is Moth calling to me. Yeah. Moth had its way. Light leaks through the cracks. My mind is brighter than it ever was. The higher I rise, the more I see. I dreamt of the mantis behind the white door, of the great space above the orchard, the space that overlooks the bounds, the space where this vagabond once painted her river. Painted ships passed upon the painted river. I met the painted eyes of a painted captain. She saluted, and the motion was like the layered movement of clouds. The sail of the ship was amber, and the captain's eyes the green of new barley, and the river aquamarine. Now that I'm safe, I see those colors still. So, there is one way that I can deal with this. I would have preferred to deal with this in a slightly different way, but we can just take... What we can do right now is just take stock of what we're up against. So, we've got a dread here. Move the notoriety and misty. I should probably clean this up a little bit better, but... Okay, so if I want to get rid of the fascination early, I've got 2 fleeting reminiscences, so that's not much of a problem. The thing I'm more worried about would be the Hang on. Did I miss something in terms of restlessness? I thought I had more than one. I know this one's coming up, but... Okay, actually, it may be even easier than I thought. So the way I'm going to deal with the kind of the dread and restlessness, can't really say anything about the books, but this dread has 93 seconds, so we're in a similar situation to before, where this dread, like, it's gone in the time that it will take a season of despair to come up. So I can get rid of this fascination through dreaming of the fleeting reminiscence or the dread. In this case here, I think what I'm going to do is dream of this fleeting reminiscence because it's going away anyway. That does mean the dread's going to be hanging around and maybe some terrible thing's going to happen to me as a result of that, but... We'll see if I'm right, I guess. The stage awaits hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. I'm sorry I'm not really finishing thoughts here. I've had... It's been a weekend. I'm ready for the weekend, even though I'm recording this at about 10 o'clock Sunday night. So I've been trying to fight through the sleeplessness. I just wanted to make sure that I got the monitor in time. The computer store's not open very long on Sunday, and it was raining very, very, very heavily all day. Yeah, I needed to make sure I was up much earlier than my bedtime should have allowed for. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. If you wanted a video blog, you'd probably be visiting elsewhere. But what we want to do now is add Enid, our remaining Nock follower, to deal with the serpent. Call upon the mother ants, which ariseth from wounds. The serpent's mouth is large enough to crouch in. Its tongue is the thickness of a man's shoulders, but almost certainly it will respect the power we bear. But yeah, depending on what happens with his restlessness, I'll assign, greater or lesser weight to particular particular tasks like painting. If we're lucky, that notoriety gets picked up, so we can send Leo out right away towards the 4th change. For the next change, I must soften myself to receive the agencies of alteration. Same self, I'm no further along my path of change. In the movements of the secret forms, I must find my lesson. And I prepared the text for study. So I can translate the Gospel of Zacchaeus, or we can roll the dice with one of the books. I think I said I was going to do all the translations, so Gospel of Zacchaeus for starters. A lost early Christian text. It's in Greek. Lock the study door, the work begins. Okay. Probably should have paid attention. I don't think I was paying attention to see what would be coming up, but I'm definitely not going to mind a season of sickness, even if I have to pay for the medicine. It's a relief from some of the nastier stuff that might be coming after us. Optimism is a spice which saves. All right, so notoriety is also dealt with. And tonight I sense an opportunity. Tonight I could attract attention if I cease to hold back, if I commit myself more fully. To give you an example of the tiredness I'm feeling, I actually don't remember going to the Gaiety. All right, let's deal with our talk verb. I think we can still send Leo. I'm not crazy about the fact that he's only going to pick up the Mystique, but it'll work. Not everyone is sympathetic to our aims, but if we have problems with our reputation, our disciple can probably smooth them over. It lowers... Oh, sorry. It lowers its great head. Moisture seeps from its lidless eyes. Is it weeping? What does it remember of its eldest sister, whose power we call upon? And, again, fortune smiles. Course of the heart. I felt all their eyes upon me. Afterwards, I received a gift from an admirer. Too gaudy for my tastes, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. Okay, so this really opens up some possibilities for us. My preference would be heart. But let's just see what we're working with. Okay, free turn coming up. So yes, we are going to do the heart commission. As we get sick, our thoughts turn towards the Thunderskin. This may be useful for a commission. The air is curdled now. I'm home again in this lump in flesh. Better, perhaps. Okay, so we're also ready for a trip to the Stag Door. This will kind of keep us from... This will keep us from being able to heal up right away, but honestly, you know, half a minute isn't really going to make the biggest difference. Again, we'll run this through to the end of the expedition. It should be close. Actually, I should have turned in the commission first. That was my bad. A nest of lights. The tunnels beneath the cave are smooth with the great serpent's passage, and chokingly dark until we come with our lanterns. But the chamber where it nested is surprisingly bright. Luminescent fungi flood the place with Ersta's moonlight. Perhaps the candles drew it, not repelled it. Alright, so there's our vitality, which we'll use, and we prepared the text for study. So I feel a little bad starting a text on one broadcast and finishing with another, but sunset passages. A miscellany of the funerary prayers, ceremonies, and hymns of the Church of the Unconquered Sun, which was ascendant in the 3rd and 4th histories. So, I'll say it the way people normally say it. It schismed during the intercalate when the sun was divided and has not survived as a significant force. The funny thing is that I've also heard schism, and I realize it is a less frequently used one. And I think I've actually probably talked about this in a stream before, so maybe it's not that important. But I actually really like the way it's not the first time I've heard schism, but one notable example of it is anybody who's seen The Young Pope with Jude Law. Jude Law says schism in like a really good way, so I'm partial towards it. But everybody corrects me whenever I don't say schism, and it bugs me. I just kind of wish people would mind their own business, frankly. So, yeah, to avoid the frustration, I've been beaten into submission, I suppose. And for all I know, schism could just be completely wrong. Like just because somebody says it in a movie doesn't make that true. But I believe both are. Acceptable. I'm sure the linguists will. That's probably not a linguistics question, but I'm sure experts will have thoughts. The church revered the sun in splendor before it was divided, but even while it was still... Yeah, okay, sorry, we read that. The church revered the sun in splendor before it was divided, but even while it was still whole, its later selves were recognized as its name. Let's try that one more time. The church revered the sun in splendor before it was divided, but even while it was still whole, its later selves were recognized as its names. The Madrigard, of course, presided over death and the passage into the house. So again, we've got 17 seconds before the expedition's over, so there's no way we'll see the other half on that. But if I can remember on Monday, I will. I'll be sure to read the beginning parts. This illness has damaged my health. I'll need to rest before I'm fully recovered. Okay, I just like moving the affliction and vitality close to the dream slot so I don't forget. And the nest of lights, a little cache of treasures culled over the years from the serpent's meals. It has nosed them into a glinting pile. So this may actually help me with the dread, so this isn't necessarily bad. Light dews the skin, suffuses the air. We have the sky, the soul, so that's an Aramaic text. I'm always happy to get those, although I'm probably going to have to move everything over to the side so that we can fit it on our shelves. I feel like one day I should do just like a 4-hour video of silence and organizing the board. The account of Kanishk at the spider's door. The ichor vitreous, a pale and watchful fluid that can be gathered sometimes when the door in the eye is opened. And for those of you that actually, I guess you can sort of see it if you ever want to know where the ichor vitreous comes from. I believe that's how you open the door in the eye. I guess you can't really see the instrument, but that thing right there. All right, so we're going to have some decisions to make. So I don't need to use the Callagine for... I don't need to use the Callagine to destroy evidence. It turns out that the weary detective wasn't quite up to the job at the time. So the ideal will be to use the Percussagant and the Callagine to talk to each other. That will, of course, have the cost of... First of all, I need to wait 21 seconds. The notoriety is going to be sitting around... Oh, hang on. That's the new notoriety. My apologies. So... Yeah, we're not gonna be able to mess around with evidence, reputation repair, let's say. And I am going to lose a little bit of life on the Callagine and the Percussagant, but I think we can handle that. I'll start searching out a Forbidden Epic because we'll be getting a new card anyway. Those stories that have been forbidden are the ones most apt for us to read. And yeah, I think in the coming week, lots of books to deal with. So we've got 4 translated texts as well as 2 new ones. We've got a pretty decent little rotation going on here in terms of fulfilling commissions, getting new ones, and performing at the Gaiety. And the real kind of drag has actually been our ability to acquire Forbidden Epics, even though we have actually been able to go through the Stag Door lately. So I may want to think a little bit about how I can improve my the rate of acquisition for those. That's certainly something that I can deal with in the future. I will also just mention, again, because Humble sort of messed around with the schedule on this, actually, I should be able to find it really quickly. I did just want to remind folks, if it is available on the day that the video goes live, I'll include a link to the bundle. But Humble does have a deck builder bundle. It looks like... So now extended, but extended to when? Offer ends in 4 days. Okay, so I may have blown it in terms of the timings and that as well. But this video won't have it. Well, no, it'll be irrelevant for this video because everything else will have happened in the past. Sorry, I did want to try and make sure that I made up for what I missed last week. How about we just leave it at... Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to seeing at least some of you on Monday when we return to the Dancer DLC.